Chapter 1, Part 1.2 of the book Thanks by AMLO. If you got this by mistake, don't worry, go to the playlist and you can hear the Part 1.1. Please subscribe, give us a like, comment, and share. Thank you. My childhood in Tepetitan, it's still present in what I am right now. The family, the surroundings where I grown, there were the foundings of what came after. My teenager and my youth were determinant for the way that my politics vocation will take. I've been always really lucky. Or in Tepetitan, we didn't had any secondary school. So the most probable thing is that I weren't keep studying. My mom and my dad, as I just said, they used to be merchants and more like send me to school, they probably were thinking about me to help them to work over the counter at that store. But a very good man, Dorilan Dominguez, the son of the old Lan, a cowboy that were very respected and loved in my town, he spoke with my mother to convince her to subscribe me to the secondary school. He took me to Macuspana. We were riding a horse because the way it was a very difficult way when was raining and nobody has a car or a truck and we didn't had the community bus that we built it later. In those days in 1966 the most usual it was the horse or to go over the water in a boat or a cayuco. If it weren't be for Lancillo, I will never finished the primary school even. Um, but probably with time to time, I will just leave uh, and emigrate to another place. It is well known because I keep it on my blood that since I am a kid, I had the passion for the baseball. And also I was a very good player. I was center field. I used to beat, run, and I had very good arm. In other words, if I would be a baseball player, I was going to be a very good option like a professional in the very high level leagues. But my destiny were another. I got into the secondary school of Macuspana and I was living in Doña Carmen Dominguez house as here we find the word abonado. It's very difficult to translate. That means that you pay for it, but also you will be they are going to take care of you. I don't know how to say this in English. If someone knows, please let me know. And she was the wife of Jose Hernandez. In that house, there were a very good family and very hardworking family. Well, the reader is speaking now. The next part that talks about the priest Julian Alvarez, who was the in charge of the church that was uh, at the corner of this house of Doña Carmen Dominguez. Doña means like ma'am. I don't know it. I don't think it has something. It's more like Mrs. Carmen Dominguez, but it means that a lot more of respect because doña comes from the Latin dueña, that means the the woman who belongs the land. So it's like lady, you know. It is more like saying Lady Carmen Dominguez, but it's not about nobility or hierarchy. It's very difficult to explain. It is like we call doña or don to every man and women that we really respect a lot. So difficult to explain. And the next part, I will do really my best as a reader, but it talks about baseball. And I don't know anything about baseball. So, in case that I can find someone who explain me this, I will reread it after, but now I will just do my best and I apologize. Please write down if you may do it better. I had a very good friendship with Father Julian. I used to help him at the church as monaguillo, and he showed me how to play football, soccer. And even though I never quit my favorite sport, so I used to escape during the secondary breaks to practice with the professionals of the Petrolera League. And there is where I met Cuco Toledo. He was a huge bowler, a Cuban bowler, who was really brilliant during his youth in his country and in Mexico. And now he was old, but he is still hit and had a very good arm, just like the great Roberto Clemente. Uh, with a man in the third and with a hike in the central yard, any representative used to even believe that he was going, that someone could did a step and run. I may finish telling you this little anecdote. Like 10 years ago, I was the pre-candidate of the presidency, and I was just walking pretty early in the morning in La Choca Park in Villahermosa. I was wearing a cap, uh, sunglasses, and a hoodie, very high to my neck. My idea was to not be recognized, but when I was doing my second round or the third, I was identified by the accountant Miguel Valdivia. I used to play with him when I was in high school. And with this joy that really comes from my people, my town people, he greeted me and he told me, Pinche Andres Manuel, I was pretty sure that you was going to arrive to the greatest leagues, but I never imagined that you was going to be the president of Mexico. The reader is speaking here. The word pinche in this context, it's an augmentative. Let me know if you want to know more about this word. It is kind of the F word, but it's much more different, just kind of. I was already in the secondary school when in Villahermosa I had the fortune of receiving lessons, civism lessons from a very unconventional teacher, Rodolfo Lara Laguna. Uh, for giving his classes or his lessons, he used the book The Good Citizen, but very frequently he used to get out of the text and he started talking to us about another subjects related with the social problems and of course politics. problems in those days. Once he told us that he participated on a meeting uh, against the visit of John F. Kennedy to Mexico in 1962. In those days, uh, the invasion to Cuba was happening, and he used to yell during the meeting, "Jacqueline, yes; Kennedy, no." Uh, those little details, as this one, really attached to my mind. From him, I received a very good influence, and he opened to me the this feeling about the socials, because he uh, was a school leader. Now he is still a very straight man. He is Juarista, so President Juarez follower, and left wing. In those days, I read the book A Child in the Mexican Revolution from the great Tabascanian writer and one of the best prosa writers in Spanish, Andres y Duarte. I like it so much, this text, that I literally uh, remember by memory a fragment that summarize the deep transcendency that this social movement had. Open quotes. We used to have a servant. His name was Polo. The reader is speaking now. I apologize because I don't know if in English you have this word, criado. This means that it's your servant. It's kind of an slave. Is really sad and really bad. Um, but you grow this boy or girl, maybe a criado or criada, and it's your servant. I mean, you grow him or grow her, you feed them, you if you are a very very good person, you send him to school. If not, and you are evil, you don't even feed him or feed her rightly. But the fact is that it is like an slave, and it is a very used practice nowadays, even in some places. The people who use this to have servants or domestic help or housekeeping, the full-time housekeeping, we call them coletos. Coletos means a person who believe that he or she is white in all the way of the word. I mean, in all the political term and social term of the word. But I mean, they can be white or not, because believe it or not, in Mexico there are, by the way, in all in Latin America, there are a lot of people who really believe that they are white, and they are not even near to that term. If we are uh, right wing, but this is pretty common. So we call them coletos, and they still believe, even nowadays, in certain towns, they still believe that they are superior than indigenous people, just because I've I've been always believing that this is very sad, of course, but this is the remain of the conquest of Mexico in 1520 something. I don't remember exactly the year, but it's 1524, I guess, or something like that. And of course, Spanish conquerors, they did a very, very good job making Mexican feels and Latin America indigenous people to feel that they were wrong. They did that very well. It's pretty sad. Some indigenous people really believe that they doesn't worth. And if you are listening to me and you born in the United States, but your mother, your father, your grandmother, your grandfather speaks a language and an indigenous language, or if they are pretty brown skin and very indigenous physiognomy, please, I will beg you something. I mean, on my knees, I will beg you to stop thinking that you or your family is wrong or has something bad. Because all the human beings in this world, we are exactly the same. We are perfect as we are. And we don't have to change any of our skin, any of our hair, any of our eye color. We are just perfect as we are, and we are perfectly subjects of dignity, valid, validity, and our words exactly the same as any other word. And every single language in this world, it's perfect. So if you speak English, great. If you speak Spanish, great. If you speak Mazateco, great. If you speak Nahuatl, great. If you speak Quiche, great. Any language in the world is perfect. So please, please, we all try to read this book trying to think. We don't want to be coletos. We don't want coletos in the world. Never, ever. We don't want people who think that are white just because a white person told them that white is fine and the rest is wrong. Please, please, over my knees, on my knees, I beg you, please stop thinking that. Being said that, I will go on and I will start again. And sorry about this, but it's really, really bothers me. We used to have a servant. His name was Polo. He was an Indian boy with the cold view of his race, but with a smile, with a very lovely smile in his lips. I don't know what he told me about Don Porfirio. The reader is talking about. I'm so sorry. I will read it again right after, okay, without all these interruptions. Don Porfirio used to be the president in those days. Even the Mexican Revolution became because Don Porfirio stood in the power like 11 years or so, or 14 years. I don't remember if 11 or 14 years, but not really doing his best. He was more like there for the money. And believe it or not, perhaps you live in the United States, and perhaps you born in the United States, and perhaps you are an American, and you believe that that's all the way to do it. But politician doesn't has to do with money. It is not like, oh, all the politicians wants money and that's the only way to do it. Nope, that's not right. Please check up some other countries right now. In some countries, like in some European countries, the politicians go there like volunteers, In some cases they don't gain anything else, or they has a very very bad salary, like the lowest salary in all the country, because they do it because they want to do something for the people and for the nation. And it's like social work, that they do like for 3 years or for 6 years or so. So please stop believing that the politicians just win money and that's it. No, the things are pretty different. But well, this guy Don Porfirio, he really wanted the money, and he really thought that he was white. It's a very funny anecdote about Don Porfirio Diaz. He was in indigenous, I think he was Zapoteco, if I'm not wrong. Please correct me if you know. You just can't Google him and find out. But his painters, remember that in those days, we are talking about 19, the finishing of 18 something, like 18, I don't know, 1880, 1890, and the starting of 19, because remember that in 1910, the revolution started. So, yeah, in the finishing of the 18 something, um, he ruled the Mexican lands, all the Mexican lands that in those days included, if I'm not wrong, included part of Texas. But I'm not really sure if it was in those days or before. Let's figure out. But he used to rule the Mexico, and remember that they had videos, but they were just starting. The videos and the photographs, they were just starting. It was something pretty new. So the presidents used to have painters, pictures like paintings. So he started asking the painter who whitening his skin. It was that kind. He was a coleto, perfect coleto. I mean, and he got the power, and it was pretty sad because uh, instead of Juarez, for example, Benito Juarez Garcia, he was the president also of Mexico, and he kept the the govern like for a long time, like also 10 years or so, but it was pretty different. I mean, there are many people who compare them, but it's completely absurd because Benito Juarez Garcia, he really wanted people to live well. He were there because he wanted people uh, having a good life, and his govern was splitted by a kind of revolution in between, that the name is La Reforma. And so it is not the same. Okay, just someone may tell you that, oh, they were the same because they were like 10 years or so in the power, but it is not really like that, because Benito Juarez did it like from the bottom, like from the people has had the power. They had like the decisions, and he was like the person, and apologize. All the neighborhood dogs just thought that this was the best moment to bark, and they are barking everywhere. But I'm so sorry about that. So yeah, well, that was Porfirio Diaz. Porfirio Diaz was a guy who wanted to convert Mexico in Europe, and he really felt very ashamed about indigenous people and everything, and his own blood, which is the first characteristic of the coletos, right? Okay, so let's keep on, and I will read it complete right after. Open quotes. We used to have a servant. His name was Polo. He was an Indian boy. He used to have that cold view from his races. But he had a very lovely smile at his lips. I don't know what he told me about Don Porfirio and about my uncle, But of course, it was something about the politicians and the richness. I told about this to my cousin, and the only thing that I remember it is that one night my father was really nervous, and he spoke by himself with Polo. I mean, they both together and alone. So I perhaps understood that it was something about my sin because I got hided behind the closet. My father saw me or discovered me, and he pushed me out and slapped my face. "You gabby gossip," he told me. For me, who never received any kind of hit, it was the worst punishment. Apollo, in those days, he started feeling this growing fire of the rebellion. In 1917, in Plenty Revolution, I saw him one day on the Green Cross, and I went to talk with him. He was in very bad shape, all his clothes uh, like broken and dirty, but he had his gun with him. So I joined him until we arrived to his army house, and it was in the Esquipulas church. Polo told me that he was coming home one day, but he never did. And someone told us that he was killed right after. From my high school, I remember really uh, reading The Brief History of Mexican Revolution of Don Jesus Silva Herzog. There are two books published by El Fondo de Cultura Económica. With these books, I started discovering my country and I started thinking about politics participation. A good leader cannot be formed if he doesn't know the history. The history is the teacher of life, and the history is what forges the most important things. In my case, my family, my town, the freedom, the tropics, my civism teacher, the book of Don Jesus Silva Herzog, and maybe also a failure, an economical failure in my business, in my father's business, were some circumstances that one way or other really, really marked my way. My parents were merchants, and our business just broke. That happened when I finished my high school and I decided to come to Mexico City to study the university. I just took the initiative during those very difficult circumstances because I had no money, but I got free. I just started walking and I just arrived living in 1973 to the house of the Tabascanian student that was in Mexico City in the street Violeta on Colonia Guerrero, Guerrero neighborhood. All the part one, it's already uploaded, so go for it. You can go to the playlist and get it. And please subscribe, give us a like, comment, and share.